All right, let's get started. Thanks, contestants, for joining. Today, we're going to go through basically what you're going to need to do to get through this contest and give some background as to what we're trying to achieve and why we started this contest. So I'm actually going to bring up, the DevOps Championship onboarding, but also give you something that we presented to DevOps World and why we're going through this. So in context of what we're trying to achieve, when people deliver software or people try to get releases to environments, it causes a lot of grief. A lot of people's lives are impacted, and we consider those battle scars. So we're hoping to mend those battle scars and reward those who are trying to mend those battle scars. So I wanted to share what we consider to be what are great statistics when releasing software or doing DevOps within an organization. So you understand the sources of your current success and what we're going to ask participants to do within this session. And you'll get your link that has all of the logins and credentials to all of the software that we'll be providing. So common success numbers that we're all familiar with, increase our code promotions, improve our code quality, faster deployments. Everybody basically looks at this as velocity as a reflection of improvement. But the question that we're having and why we did this contest is it hurting anyone? Is it causing difficulties for people to sustain these metrics? Like, we understand the technical and business benefits of releasing software more frequently. We understand that increasing security is good, but are there underlying issues such as people who are like yourself, working really hard to maintain these numbers? Is it talent driven, right? Are you taxing them? So what happens and what are the metrics that are driven by talent or heroics? So you can't sustain digital transformation if it's based on people, just increasing their performance and efficiency. So what's the approach? What's happening? So in this case, you're going to have people leave organizations. When production failures, you're going to hurt your talent. When you do audits, you're going to distract your talent. When you have slow or no code promotion that's automated, you're wasting your talent. There's just too much heroics that are required. So with this contest, we're saying we want you to be heroes for others. When you're heroes for others, you're going to build process that removes the dependency on the talent pool to actually deliver change to an environment, such as delivering software to your customers. Okay, what should we measure to find pain? I'm going to give you metrics and what the calculator is going to measure, and understand what we're going to be looking at when you're going through your contest submission. We want to know today, when I want to protect talent, I want to know the percentage of failures to production. I want to know how many retries when we do something. They're a reflection of doing things by hand. So let's say I'm increasing my velocity. I'm releasing more times and getting my software to our customers. But there's lots of retries. What that is taxing on your resources. We also created a calculator to measure the software development lifecycle, the inefficiencies of it, right? What is the human toil of our software release factory? And then the number of hours spent on production or heroics. How much time do we spend on self-development? What are the right values? How many failures should be happening in production? The answer is 0 if I orchestrate. How many retries? It really should be 0. The reason being is we should have repetitive processes that automated before we get to production. Production is just a repeat, rinse and repeat. Percentage of inefficiencies, that's not really going to hit 0. The point of the calculator that you're going to use is highlight where you are today and move and improve from there. So if you find your process to release your application or your service or your environment is ineffective, that's okay, as long as we measure it the second time and we're in a better state. So that is what we're going to be focusing on. And the intent of all of this is so you can spend time on self-development, not spending time being a hero trying to save your applications or production systems because they were failures. So I'm going to give some experience that I had at NCR, which is why we created the calculator. This is a reflection of deployments. Before it's automated and before it's orchestrated, all I did was join the call and measure how long we worked on it, how long were releases, and then the dots that you see, the red dots, reflect handcrafting. right? How many handcrafts were there? So the ones that are off the chart are quite high. I just didn't want to make the chart skewed, but they're around like 30 to 40 hours. These are deployments that really went outside the window. Would go through Saturday and Sunday. This maintained our statistics. We still had fast deployments. We still had teams that were looking great from a statistics perspective, but boy, was the team tired, right? We would basically look at these releases and say, holy crap, we're going to be working all night, but we're going to get it done because we're dedicated. That's not how it should operate. You need to have something that can measure this. So what we put together was this statistic, but obviously you're not going to present to your leadership or in this contest a graph like this. You're going to use the calculator we built. The calculator obviously didn't exist at the time. So as we tracked it, this is what it became. This is what we're looking at. You'll see there's no retries, and the average deployment time moved down to 20 minutes. It's not so much about the time. It's more about are there retries and failures, so that the taxing of the team doesn't exist. You don't have deployment calls. You don't have maintenance windows. You're trying to orchestrate the process for releasing software so that this graphic is a representation of your talent dependency. There should be very minor talent dependency. So measuring your inefficiency of your SDLC. There's a lot of things that impact the release process of software or environments or data centers. It doesn't have to be a specific application. We put together this calculator. This calculator is going to tell you where you're having trouble. So when you start this contest, you know your starting point. No smoke and mirrors. It's very clear. It will tell you areas that you should focus on. And those who are going to win this contest, it's going to be focused on how much of this you're going to improve from the perspective of the DevOps practitioner, the person who is making this release occur. How much of it can be orchestrated? How much of it can take the dependency and toil off of your resource using the calculator to measure it, and then the DevOps war chest. All these tools and software that you can use to augment your capabilities. I'm going to jump into at this point as I will share my screen so you can see the other content. Give me 1 second. I'll just switch to share my screen. I'm going to switch over to the DevOps Championship for the contestant page. We're all going to get this in an email. This is the contestant page. What will happen is you'll have a Dropbox. Very simply, in the Dropbox, we're looking for a screenshot of the calculator when you finish it, and a recording of how you run your process today. So this is your starting point. We call it the starting point file. I want to know where you're paying, and what does your demo look like today, and then you get time to work on it. Below here is obviously the calculator. So you'll have your engineering effectiveness calculator. You'll have your Dynatrace trial, which will be extended as you use it. Don't worry, it won't expire. You'll have your Terraform, your Vault, your Console, your Nomad, and you'll have your Ansible or Ansible Tower, however you want to use it. All of these are available for you to download and get up and running. This war chest is for you to leverage to improve what you find in the calculator, right? So you've seen your contestant page. You know that what we're looking for is to find out, how do I release my environment of software today? Show us a screenshot of the report in the calculator. Put a short recording together. It can only be a few minutes to say, hey, this is how I do it today. Walk us through your process. An example process that I can show. If I move here, a lot of companies use Jenkins. This is an example Jenkins pipeline. You can show us how much is orchestrated before, how much is orchestrated after. This is an example of the most common CI/CD practice today, which is a Jenkins pipeline. If you're doing something else, show it. It doesn't matter what you're using. It can be manual process and you decide to adopt something like this. I just wanted to show an example, what we're looking for. You'd say, I walk through what it does. This is what it does in each step. And then what your gaps are, and then work towards fixing those gaps. Let's go into the calculator. So the final piece of this, and if anybody has any questions, by the way, can you let me know if anybody has any questions before I go forward? It can be interactive. If anybody has any concerns or looking for more information as I walk through. Q&A. Perfect. Okay, so this engineering effectiveness calculator, we built this from the need that we had. Like I showed you how painful it was. No one should have to join a call and say, how much pain am I going through every single time you release it? That's terrible because you're taxing resources even more just to track taxing of resources. It's really silly. Most people know what's going on. So what it's going to do is when it says release cadence for your company, this could be environment, it could be product, it could be service, whatever you want it to be. We're just saying release. How often do you make change into your environment? It's very common that people do twice monthly. The reason we do the average salary thing is not so much for the calculator to give you specific value. It's more of to understand the financial impact of taxing your resources because they're soft dollars, but are they actually soft dollars? Most people look at the hard dollars of I run less infrastructure, I run more effectively, I can cut software costs here and here. But in reality, the soft dollars of your resources, they're the ones that drive the transformation. So we're trying to give a value. It's not like we're saying this is the most important thing. It's just if I have a lot of waste in some organization, that waste can be $1 million, which are actually taxing your resources, or another one, it could be less than that, or it's just to give you an order of magnitude. When you get started, you're going to have the opportunity to pick stages. Now, this could be data centers. So for example, you could have number 1, data center in Prague, data center in Singapore. If you're not doing software, you're just doing infrastructure. So I'm not restricting this to just releasing particular applications. It could be the environments that are used by those applications, such as an AWS environment or a Google environment or a VMware environment. So you could put VMware and then it might be a production system. Okay, I'm not doing the software, I'm doing the environment. So you would pick your stages, you can delete them. You can add, so I deleted a stage, or I can add a new stage. I don't know how many you have. The more you have, the more pain you possibly have, and then we will qualify it. So I'll delete some so we can get through this process a little more quickly. It's going to ask you, obviously, if you have more stages. You can come back and you can't come back and change the stages. You can come back and reset, but you can't change stages after you submit. Now we're coming into the value. The reason the calculator is so important is we've qualified all the SDLC either from an environment perspective or from software delivery perspective into 6 categories. It's process. The intent of getting the software to production takes a lot of work. You're going to have meetings, you're going to have email, you're going to have change records, you're going to have approvals, you're going to have after hours work just to get this ready. Each of these question marks will tell you what we're looking for. So it's not as if the calculator doesn't have the guidance, and at the top it's going to tell you what you're toggling or what value you're putting in so you know what your values represent. All of it is described, but as what we're trying to do is qualify and quantify the efforts taking to make change, and then giving you a representation of it, of which stage that you're spending the time, of which pillar of draw, right? If it's process or if you go to environment, you don't need all of these activities. So you can see you can toggle on or off. A lot of organizations don't do environment create. They do environment reuse. They're opposing. Or you might have both, it's possible, but in most cases not. Environment reuse is generally static infrastructure. And some organizations have static infrastructure, but then you have a lot of triage because that static infrastructure is consistently being reused and repurposed, and you get drift. But if you're doing create, there is no triage because every time you create, it's new. You know what you're creating is new and clean. So we're trying to gather all the different perspectives of where you lie when you're delivering an environment. Environment creation is a large portion of what organizations do, and it might be your only pipeline. Like the only values you give us is more about environment, right? How much time you spend on environment, because we'll have infrastructure teams coming in and joining and say, I don't do the software, I do the creation of environment. That can be orchestrated. That can be done in such a way that the values here are 0. How long does it take your people to do the effort? Nothing. It's orchestrated. It's completely automated. That is what we're intending to do and highlight to our participants. If you move into deployment, the deployment is, I need to build an artifact. The artifact, I don't know what that would be within your use case. Obviously, you would have packages that need to be deployed. That might be on top of environments. It might be SQL. It might be a Java app. And then I have the deployment process. So building that artifact and readying it, and then deploying that artifact. Is it the right version, the right one? And then validation. Is everything working from this actually being delivered? Is the service or artifact installed and ready? We then shift into testing. You might have additional, but I would say consolidate them. I didn't want to break testing into too many categories. I kind of find these are the highest level where it can all roll into. Functional testing is basically validating what you put in is working. It could be linting, it could be whatever you're doing to validate your service. UX testing, I kind of find that, that's a special area. You use Selenium, Cucumber. There are lots of tools out there that can help you within respect to UX testing. End user doesn't actually have to be the end users. It's just the end user test cases. So in many respects, I'm expecting nobody's going to have this automated, or some people might not even have this category. And then SI testing, system integration testing, it highlights that under the question mark. But basically, it's about how all the systems work together and if it's going to function when you release. Let me double check questions. None so far. Perfect. Now into security. This is a surprising one. I'm not rating people if they have the tasks or not. In many respects, this is a skip task in lots of systems, but really should it be? If you orchestrated it, really would it put toil on the resources? The reality of this is the reason security doesn't exist because all the other ones are super heavy. Like this one is kind of seen as I'll do it after the fact, but I don't have any time because I have so much burden on the other stages. So this one's generally left empty. Should it be? Probably not. Reviewing my security state before I release, scanning the environment before I release or after I release, the results, reviewing the results, and then determining if I need to remediate or not and how much time is spent on that. It's pretty straightforward. And I find most organizations have this skipped. And it's not because they don't want to, it's because the other levels are so high in burden that this just doesn't get to because it's not the highest return on value. It is from a risk management perspective, but not from a customer perspective. Okay, and then the last one is audit prep. If you're an organization that has audit, what I mean by audit prep is collecting artifacts, validating process. It can be orchestrated as well, where the audit prep itself is part of the delivery process. And then once you've done this, then audit prep is just, again, another zero, but you do the activity and it's automated. So now I'm on to production. As you'll notice, we just finished my dev. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just breaking either environments or stages in the calculator so you can see each phase, what you're spending time on. I don't need to go through them. The actual questions are repetitive, but the report is not. So the report, obviously there's no extension. I don't have lots. When you finish the calculator, I want you to take a screenshot of this. Obviously, click this bar if there's lots of stages. If you have like 7 or 8, click this bar. It'll extend across the top so I can see. There's no pie chart here, but there will be if I had filled in the values of breakdown of which environment has the most inefficiencies. Target the one with the highest inefficiency if you're intending to win, right? Target the areas of the most pain, the highest level of inefficiency. So if it says testing is 250 hours, target testing as part of your automation. If it says process, target process. And if it says it's in quality assurance, focus on quality assurance, because the more improvement you make within the findings, and not about removing everything, I don't think anybody can, target your largest pain points and it'll tell you what your potential savings could be. I'm just putting that there because it has an impact perspective, but from the contest perspective, I'm just looking at the difference between how you started and how you end up. Where is the orchestration and automation occurring? Come back to your pipeline. This is orchestration, right? You got your artifact builds, you got your delivery, you got your scans, you got your performance testing, you got your security gates, and you got your promotion to production, i.e. it's delivered. This is what we're looking for. These are types of things that we'd like to see. You might not be all of these, but it's all about the delta. We are measuring in this calculator where you started and where you finish. So if you're actually all manual today, you have a high chance of winning. And if you're partially manual, you also have a high chance of winning. You just target the pain points that have the most toil, orchestrate and automate them, present to us the calculator again after you fixed it, and then submit. So if I come back to the contestant page, let me just validate if we have any questions. Nope. Come back to the contestant page. you have your starting point. You're going to upload the screenshot of the calculator. As I just went through, it usually takes 15 to 20 minutes. And then you're going to upload a quick MP4 or whatever you want. I don't care what you throw out there from a video perspective. Just talk to whatever you're running for your process so we understand what you're doing for change into an environment. It could be releasing a server. It could be releasing software. We're open to both. And then just submit that Dropbox, your file. We just need your name so we can map it to you, and that's your starting point. Then you go to your war chest. Use what you can. We'll give you additional points if you use any of these. We'll obviously see it in your submission. When you're done, you have a time period. Like someone can confirm with me, it's either 2 or 3 months. You would then come back and drop. We'll add again the finishing point. You would drop your finishing point, video, and the calculator screenshot, and that's it. That's the contest. Whoever does win has the opportunity to be showcased. Obviously, their case study could be published if they'd like by Dynatrace, by HashiCorp, by Red Hat, by Benchmark, because they're interested in seeing how creative you can get and using their tools to help you. So we've put these assets together based on partnerships with these organizations. We kind of find them really wickedly good when it comes to helping you orchestrate and automate this process. And with that, if there's no other questions, I think you are ready to get your links. We'll send them out. And you'll get your calculator login credentials, which will be your starting point after the last session. We have a session on Thursday and Friday for other regions. At the end of the week, you'll get your calculator login and contestants page. I just want everybody to start at the same point. No one should have a benefit over the other just because of the region when we put the session on. Any additional questions? All right.